So I'll just quickly go over our agenda for today. We'll start with welcome, introductions, and an inclusion. We'll go over our norms as we normally do. And then Anna will lead us through the description of the FAFSA application. I know that some of you are in the process of doing that now. The form just opened up, and we've been hearing about students needing a lot of help with that. Then we'll have a couple of students talk about their dual credit experiences. And then we'll spend a chunk of time today really focusing on the SAC and CTSO research project that some of you have been involved in. We want to get some feedback from the rest of the SAC and just talk a little bit more about that. Then we'll discuss the assignment. Want to talk a little bit about the SAC newsletter. You should have received a newsletter in December. So we do that 3 times a year. And then we'll have reflections and closing. So I'm going to stop sharing so that we can see each other, but I'd like us to go around and say your name, school, grade, and one highlight from holiday break. We haven't seen each other for a while, so I thought it would be helpful for us to just go around and remind each other who we are. So I'll call you based on how I can see you on the screen. And if I forget you, please remind me if I miss you. So I see Sam, Chi, Nicole, Anthony.
Hi, my name is Sam, and I'm a junior at Mendota Township High School. And one highlight from my holiday was visiting Belize, where I'm from.
Awesome. You were lucky to be in warm weather when the rest of us were here in cold Chicago.
Hi, my name is Chi. I'm a junior from Stevenson High School, and a highlight from my break was skiing in Wisconsin.
Skiing, nice. Something I cannot do.
Hi, I'm Nicole. I'm from Fulton High School, and I'm a senior there. A highlight for my break was honestly just being able to stay home because I'm like busy every time else. So just being able to take it slow was nice.
Definitely feel that, Nicole. Anthony?
Well, hello, I'm Anthony Kelson from, I'm a junior from Mendota Township High School, and I too actually went skiing, well, snowboarding technically. We got season passes at a nearby resort, so we've been spending a lot of time out in the slopes.
Sounds fun.
Very.
I grew up in a tropical country, so snow-related activities are not my favorite thing, but it does sound like fun. Okay, Rowan, Jose, Shreyas, and Olivia.
Hi, I'm Rowan. I'm a junior at Moline High School, and I think my favorite was getting back to ice skating.
Wow, lots of ice-related activities.
Hi, my name is Jose, a junior at North Chicago Community High School, and I think just like spending time with family and friends is like really good for me over the break.
Nice.
Hi, I'm Shreyas. I'm from Barrington High School. I'm a senior, and I think the highlight of my break was probably getting all my college applications in.
Yeah.
I'm
All right.
Olivia. I'm a senior at Belvedere North High School. I think I got to go visit my brother down in Bloomington for a couple days, and I hadn't seen him in a while, so that was probably my highlight.
Nice.
Hi, everybody. I'm Anasia. I'm a junior at South Shore International, and a highlight of my break was going to see my dad in New York. I travel back and forth because that's where I'm from.
New York. Nice.
Hi, my name is Heaven. I'm a junior at South Shore, and my highlight was going roller skating.
Very nice.
Everyone, I'm Emily. I'm a senior at Barrington High School, and over winter break, I got to stay at home, but I got to see some family, so that was really nice.
Hi, everyone. Ana Moya, Illinois Student Assistance Commission. I am from Chicago, went to North Grand High School. One highlight, it was such I had COVID during the beginning of December, and it just carried on, but it was just so nice just not seeing anyone and just being able to relax and for life to wind down. So my highlight is just enjoying my house.
Nice.
That's what happens when you grow up.
Dania?
Hi, everyone. My name is Dania Brahim. I'm an innovation manager at Education Systems Center. So, as you all know, like I've mentioned before, I work with a lot of your innovative things that are happening at your schools, like work-based learning. And a highlight from my break was I actually went on my honeymoon. So it was a big break. I was in Punta Cana, so it was really beautiful.
Yeah, also in a warm place.
Mhm.
And I'm Edith Juguna, the director of the Success Network. Very excited to see all of you. And for me, I was happy to stay home and spend time with friends and family and just relax. So like some of you said, it was a great time to sort of decompress.
Thanks, Edith. So we go over this every meeting, and it's just a friendly reminder for kind of what our expectations are. So we're probably mostly familiar with this, but being on time for a meeting, which I see that a lot of us did really well today, and then actively participating in meetings and completing assignments. That's also going to be really important just to make sure that we have a good environment for collaboration, along with like listening to others and being respectful, inclusive, and open-minded. And being kind. We want to make sure that everyone's voices are able to be heard and shared during our meetings. And then please don't be afraid to talk, unmute, and if you have any concerns, you can also drop it in chat too. And then just a reminder to maybe not multitask or do other tasks while on meeting, and if possible, to keep your camera on at all times.
Thank you for that, Emily. Anna, I'll stop sharing and kick it to you to discuss FAFSA.
All right. I apologize because Edith did ask me to make this interactive, but just talking about the FAFSA, it's very black and white, but it's necessary information that you will need, especially, can you guys raise your hand on the screen who's a senior? Okay, I know, Emily, I think you completed your FAFSA already. So for the rest of you, this is the year that the FAFSA went through the most changes. So you might run into, you're going to need this information for all of the juniors and sophomores. For all of the seniors, you will definitely, there's been a lot of parents who have been having a hard time with. So I'm here to answer questions, but also just to share a little bit about what it is. So I have some slides, bear with me. And if you can hear my Roomba, I'm sorry, I can't chase it to turn it off for the life of me. So give me 1 second. All right, can you all see my presentation?
It's coming through clear for me.
Okay, thank you. All right, so the first thing to talk about is the types of financial aid. And I'll get into the FAFSA. I promise I'll get into the FAFSA. Types of financial aid, we have gift aid. That's going to be any money you do not have to pay back. And I want to go over this because a lot of the students, including my nephew, who I just helped out with the FAFSA, just assumed financial aid was gift money. And gift money comes in two forms. Is going to be grants. Grants tend to be more based on your financial need, and scholarships tend to be more about items that you do. So maybe if you're in a sport and you get a scholarship, or if you have really good grades and you can get an institutional scholarship, versus grants, as you're going to see in a minute, it's going to be, you might have a scholarship that calls it a grant, but for the most part, at the federal and state level, grants are money that's awarded based on your financial need. And then I wanted to mention this because a lot of schools, all of the schools, consider self-help aid, which is borrowed or earned money, to also be financial aid. So seniors, as you're looking into your financial aid offers, when the colleges start sending those to you, pay attention to it, because it might look like your out-of-pocket cost, like the money you're going to pay out of your pocket, it's going to be $0, but they might include in there federal work study and student loans, because that's also part of financial aid and it's considered financial aid. This is why I really wanted to emphasize this, because not a lot of people know this, not a lot of parents know this, because they also include the Parent Plus loans as part of financial aid, which will be the parents' responsibility and the students can get caught up with that. The parents can get caught up with that. So we have gift aid, money that's given, self-help aid, money that you pretty much have to work for, because federal work study is something that, yeah, you can see it on your financial aid offer, but you're going to have to work in order to receive that money. And then for any borrowed money, any loans, you have to work to pay it back. And the reason why the FAFSA is so important here in the state of Illinois, it's important in every state and for anyone completing it, but for anyone who is an undergraduate student in the state of Illinois that will attend a MAP-approved school. A MAP-approved school just literally means a school that the state of Illinois would give funding to as part of our grants. If this student is eligible for a full amount of what we call the Illinois Monetary Award Program, the MAP grant, and the federal Pell Grant that comes from the Department of Education, they can get up to $15,795 for the school year. This is for the 2023-2024 school year. It's expected that it's going to stay the same for the 24-25 school year. So that year that you seniors are going to be going forward. And then for the juniors and sophomores, legislators are always talking about increasing this amount. So it might be a little bit higher. Hopefully it's a little bit higher, right? If you're a member to the types of aid that I mentioned, gift aid is money that is free and you do not have to pay back at all. So imagine if you're going to, let's say, UIC, the tuition and mandatory fees at UIC alone, depending on what program you enter, it's about $18,000. So if you have good grades, they might give you a merit scholarship that's about $2,000. If you qualify for both of these grants, you would qualify to have pretty much all of your school paid for. And this is not even like filling out scholarship applications or anything like that. This is just one application that will get you into the path of being eligible for these two. And I'm pointing this way because my side screen is this way. So just know I'm right here. So an overview of the financial aid process, you have to first file a financial aid application annually. It's the FAFSA. For those of you guys who qualify to complete the FAFSA, you would qualify for the MAP grant and the Pell Grant if you qualify for that. And this has to be done every year. Now, the money I just talked to you both about, and then Edith, if you want to cut me off because I tend to like start explaining a lot, so I don't go over the 20 minutes, let me know. These two grants are only for undergraduate students. So you have to apply for this, and then automatically the FAFSA will let you know if you qualify for it, but it's only while you're an undergraduate student. So even if you took dual credit or anything like that, that doesn't mean you have your bachelor's degree. If you're looking to earn your bachelor's degree, you'll get this. So the FAFSA has to be filed annually. Even if you earn your bachelor's degree and you're a grad student, you can still file the FAFSA to see if you qualify for federal student loans, but you wouldn't qualify for the grants. This is why you really have to take an advantage of this coming out of high school. So you file that every year. If you complete your FAFSA and you get selected for a process called verification, you just have to complete that process. Whatever the financial aid office is asking you for, just complete that so that the money can be disbursed to your account. Then you receive and review any financial aid offers. It's really going to be important for this year, seniors, because if you guys get selected for verification, you're not going to receive a financial aid offer from the school. So you don't want to be making a decision on what school you want to attend blindly, right? So you review those financial aid offers. If you don't receive a financial aid offer around March or April, contact me, contact the financial aid office, because more than likely it can be that you got selected for verification and that's holding it up. Then you want to respond to the college and then complete all pending processes. But the most important thing is filing that application annually. And we say file a financial aid application annually because we also have an application for qualifying undocumented students to qualify for the MAP grant. They wouldn't qualify for the Pell Grant, but they would qualify for the MAP grant. So there's another application for that. Now, how do I apply for financial aid? I'm telling you, you have to apply every year. The first step is going to be the free application for federal student aid. That's going to be the FAFSA. Not only do we use it to calculate MAP grant and also the Pell Grant, but also a lot of institutions use it to know how much of their own money they should be awarding to their students. We have the second one, the alternative application for Illinois financial aid. This is only for qualifying undocumented students to know if they qualify for the MAP grant. Everybody else, if you qualify to complete the FAFSA, you qualify for, it'll be also your application for the MAP grant. You do not need to complete the alternative application. And then with other forms, it can be institutional forms, or there's very few schools in the state of Illinois who have this, but if you're going out of state, it might be something that you run into, the CSS profile. That's very much like the FAFSA. It's just a different form that includes different information. So for now, I'm just going over what you need for the FAFSA. So you will go into the FAFSA. This is going to be available at no cost. So if you and your parents are interested, more than likely your school's already hosting a workshop. If they're not, you can contact one of us and we can work with you one-on-one. It has gone live. It went live on the 31st of December. This is the first year that it happened on 31st of December. For the 25-26 school year, you guys, the FAFSA and the alternative application, they're going to open up October 1st. It is used to apply for federal financial aid. And again, some states use it, specifically the state of Illinois for sure, they use it to award financial aid programs. And then for the alternative application, also available at no cost, it is only for Illinois State financial aid. That's why if you qualify to complete the FAFSA, if you qualify for federal student aid, complete the FAFSA, just because if you only complete the alternative application, this means that the schools are not going to know if you qualify for federal student aid. So this is, again, I really want to emphasize this because we get that question a lot. And again, it's for qualifying undocumented students. Now, the FAFSA is not, like I mentioned, schools use, they consider loans to be financial aid as well. The FAFSA is not going to just be an application to know if the student qualifies for the Pell Grant or just free money overall. It is also going to be the easiest path if you absolutely need it to get student loans at a low rate with a lot of benefits. And I know, you know, I think younger students are so familiar with like credit and they're so much more financially smart than I was when I was in high school. But just assuming that you do need those loans, again, there's going to be two types of loan that you would qualify just by completing the FAFSA. The first one's going to be what's called a direct subsidized loan. So again, if you, let's talk about the example I gave about UIC, right? At UIC, if you're getting the full amount of the MAP grant and the Pell Grant, that's a little bit over $15,000. Tuition costs $18,000. And you are being offered $5,500 in loans. Half of that is going to be a subsidized loan. The subsidized loan, pretty much think about it this way: subsidized, the government, the Department of Education will help you out with the interest while you're in school. Unsubsidized does not help you out with the interest. So if they're offering you $5,500 in loans and you're like, I really need like these $2,500 so that I'm able to have all of my tuition and mandatory fees paid for, then you can look at your financial aid offer and identify which one's a subsidized loan and unsubsidized loan. And you can accept whatever amount you want from each one of them. If you just want to take the subsidized loan because you're like, you know what, the Department of Education is going to help me out with the interest during that, which they really do add up the interest rate, you can go ahead and take that out. Another thing about loans, when they come from the Department of Education or any lender in general, you can accept up to what you need. So again, they may be offering you $5,500, but you can accept whatever you need. If you don't need any, if you don't want to take on any loans, you can decline all loans. If you only need $1,000, let's say you want to get a computer for your first year, you can only, you do have the option of only taking out $1,000. So again, subsidized loan, these are going to be loans that the interest is paid by the government, the Department of Education. unsubsidized loans, the student is going to be in charge of that interest. And that can be whether you're making monthly payments on the interest or you let the interest accumulate until you're done with school. And then once that happens, that interest rate that you did not pay gets added to your loan. So just know the difference with those two. Again, FAFSA will help you complete this portion of it. It'll automatically, it's not a separate application you have to do. It'll automatically just do that for you, and the financial aid offer will have that. Now, what information is going to be needed? This is going to be specifically for the student. The student's going to need their social security number. The second bullet point, parents who do not have a social security number, they wouldn't enter all zeros. That option's not there. I apologize for not deleting this, but everyone's going to need a federal student aid ID to sign the FAFSA. Now, students, this is going to be based on your eligibility criteria. This is not based on your parents' eligibility. So if the student has a social security number, they create an FSA ID under their for themselves, and then the parent, this is one of the things that we've been running into now. Parents without social security numbers, they are also required to have an FSA ID. A federal student aid ID. The only thing is that because this is the newer version of it, we're having a little bit hard time. So if you have a parent who does not have a social security number and you're having a hard time completing this portion of it, be patient. I promise you, you're not doing anything wrong. Just continue to try, because the Department of Education, Federal Student Aid, they're monitoring this and they're trying to fix it. So I hope they fix it soon. We've been seeing this a ton out in the field, that parents without social security numbers, students have not been able to complete their FAFSAs. But what you can do is go in, complete your portion of the FAFSA, and then once your parent is able to complete their federal student aid ID, they'll be able to complete their section. But there's nothing that should be holding you as the student back to complete that portion. And then for all of you who are juniors, also, this is going to be something that you're going to be encountering next year. A lot of counselors are hosting FSA ID workshops early on so that you all can have this ready to go. And I promise once you and your parent have an FSA ID, the process is, it takes about like 15 minutes to complete the FAFSA. So it is a lot faster. You're going to, just to be safe, anytime you're completing the FAFSA, you want to make sure that you have the federal tax returns, any W-2s, any other records of income, banking statements and records of investments, records of untaxed income, and then the list of colleges you would like to attend. This is one big one. I was at a lot of FAFSA workshops last week where students couldn't even remember which ones they were applying for. If you don't list a college, that college is not going to get your information. So you want to make sure that if you apply for the college, that you list that college so they can receive your information and make an offer to you. Otherwise, they will not even be aware that you're interested, other than having your admissions letter and no financial aid information. So make sure that you have that list of colleges on there too.
Anna, do you want to pause for a minute and see if there are questions?
Thank you. Yeah. No questions. All right. So these are going to be the two biggest resources for financial aid, not just for financial aid or assistance with financial, but also with assistance with financial aid as well. The first one's going to be the Illinois Student Assistance Commission. That's our agency. We have a lot of grants, scholarships. We have prepaid tuition programs. Loan repayment and forgiveness programs, depending, they're very specific, but the biggest thing is we have the MEP grant. And then we also have assistance. We provide assistance one-on-one at every step of the college going process. And then the Department of Education, definitely, if you're receiving any letters, make sure that they are from these two resources, unless you know that you apply for a scholarship and that's who you're receiving notifications from. And I really want to mention this because, again, just nephew experience. The other day he sent me a text. He got a text message saying like, hey, you qualify to have 100% of your loans forgiven. The Department of Education just announced this, and he texted to me and he was about to click on the link, and I'm like, you don't even have any loans. What loans are going to be forgiven? So make sure that, you know, you're aware of the money you're taking out, the scholarships you're applying for. Make sure that you're not paying for scholarships or paying for the FAFSA to be completed. And that if you get any correspondence is from either the Illinois Student Assistance Commission, the Department of Education, or any other trusted place where you know you applied for it. All right. Okay, that is all I had, Edith. I do see the chat. I don't know if there's any questions. Oh. All right, if you guys have any questions, I'm going to type our student portal and I'm going to type in my email address. If you guys have any questions, you guys can contact me. Otherwise, you guys can reach out to what we call an ISAC core member. They work at the high schools and they help out with financial aid as well. They're near your community, and you can, if you're interested in having like a one-on-one meeting with them and your parents, they can also do that as well.
I do have one question, actually.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So for once you actually get into college, are there other applications that you need to sign like every continuous year to get more financial aid, or is that more up to certain institutions whether or not you get the aid?
Well, no. So that's a great question. So the FAFSA, like I said, has to be completed every year to know if you qualify for those 2 grants. And then one thing, it is, you kind of answered the question, it is going to be up to every financial aid institution, or every institution, not every financial aid institution. Every institution is going to have their own rules and regulations. You want to be very careful. A lot of schools, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but a lot of schools offer students like a $3,000 or $4,000 scholarship for the first year, but they don't get told, or they don't tell them that this is just going to be like a welcome to college scholarship, right? So you want to make sure that when you get your financial aid offer, you want to make sure reach out to the financial aid office at whatever institution sending you that financial aid offer, and make sure that everything on there is something that's going to be renewed every year, because a lot of times I have seen that students get caught up because for the first year, the school offers them like this incentive, like welcome to college scholarship for $3,000. And then the following year, the student's like, well, how am I supposed to come up with this money? I thought it was just going to automatically happen. So check in with their institution to make sure that you're going to have access to that money every year. And then the second part about like having to sign any other documents, this is going to depend, right? Because if let's say you're going to dorm at your institution, or you get offered federal work study. So you have to know about the processes that the institution has, because if you're going to dorm and you're going to dorm every year, it is going to be very likely that you have to go through that process every year, right? Unless you decide that the next year you want to rent. But if you're going to dorm every year, you got to follow up with that process every year. Same thing with federal work study. If you get federal work study 1 year, that means that you have to apply for a job that qualifies for federal work study in your campus. And then you have to work, and then complete the FAFSA again and select that you want to be you're interested in federal work study, and then see if whoever your employer was last year can just continue to have you if you really enjoyed that job, continue to have you for the following years, and what the steps are for that.
That makes sense. Thank you.
That's a great question.
Thank you so much, Anna. Are there any other questions? I know we talked about this when we met in October briefly, but because the application just came out, we wanted to make sure that you have the most recent information. Anna, please drop your contact in the chat. And if students have any questions as you go through the process, please just reach out to Anna or any of us. And now we're going to shift gears a little bit. One of the things that we've talked about is dual credit. And we know we have some students who have dual credit experience, and that's part of the topic of the project that we're working on with the CTSO board. And so wanted to have just a couple of students share their own experiences about participating in dual credit, what they've learned, how they've benefited. And it's a really helpful way to sort of cut down your costs, your college costs. So I know that Olivia and Shreyas, I think, are prepared to share, but we'll open it up to whoever else would like to share about their own experiences. Olivia, do you want to go first?
Sure. I've been doing a dual credit my junior and senior year, where I have been full-time at a local community college. So I'm not taking any classes at the high school, but they are supplementing for the credits I would have needed. And I have enjoyed it a lot. There's been a lot of freedom in it, which has been nice. And I mean, I'm gonna have 2 graduations this year, one for my diploma and one for my associate's degree. So I'm already kind of 2 years ahead of the game. And even though I haven't had the most normal experience with it, last semester I broke my ankle and I was out for like 3-4 months, and I was scared I was gonna like get kicked out of the program because I wasn't able to be there. Everyone worked with me really well, and it was just a taste of that like independence and the advocacy that you need. It's a great way to like kind of get your foot in the door to a lot of these things and to understand how things work in the quote unquote real world. But the classes haven't even necessarily been hard. I've made Dean's List all 3 semesters so far. And even though there's some classes you're required to take just for like to fill in for what you would have done at the high school, I found a lot of them to be really enjoyable. And all my professors have been like really cool too. And the only thing that kind of stinks is commuting, but because it's like 20-30 minutes away from where I live. But honestly, even that's not that bad. But the worst part is if you have a lab at like 7:30 in the morning. The rest of it is really not that bad. That 7:30 a.m. Science lab in winter was not fun, but the rest of it has been a really great experience and has, I think, really prepared me for being able to go off to college and understanding how to like live and work through any struggles that you're having, especially academically, when you're in a more professional institution.
Thanks, Olivia. And so, do you know where you're going once you graduate?
Not yet. The place that I want to go to, University of California, Santa Cruz. That's like the dream. But I've still got a couple more schools that I'm finishing applying to right now, but I want to go for environmental anthropology.
Great. Thank you. Shreyas?
Yeah, so I go to Barrington High School and I take these dual enrollment courses through Harvard College, but I actually stay at the high school and these courses are integrated within our schedule, which is something different. And they're taught through like trained Harvard teachers. And because of this, I've had more access to these courses and I've been taking them since sophomore year, ranging from 101 classes to engineering classes and science courses. And I would say my overall experience with them has been pretty great because, again, because the teachers and also because these courses offer like a blended flexible learning style, which is something different from your normal honors or AP classes where like attendance is mandatory every single day. And I mainly took these courses because they're very career oriented towards my interests. And other courses at my school don't really offer this level of specification. Like, for example, I want to go into medicine, but I also have an interest in engineering. So I've gotten like a chance to take courses on medical terminology, anatomy, physiology, but also take courses on digital electronics and whatnot. And one thing I hope to see that my school do is actually a better job providing information on these courses, as these courses are available, but I mainly find out about these courses through other students and teachers, but I don't really see any sort of special posting from school or any sort of specialized department that really advertises for them and provides information.
Great, super helpful. We wanted these 2 students to share because they're 2 different models, right? So Olivia has to travel to the community college, whereas Shreyas is taking them in the high school, and wanted to make sure that folks have an understanding of the different options that there are. And I know that many others of you are also taking dual credit classes. And we're going to be talking a little bit more about this as we get into the CTSO and SAC assignment. So unless anybody has some burning comments they want to make right now, I'm going to move us on to the next part of the agenda. So Emily, I'll kick it to you.
Thanks, Edith. So a couple of you guys might know that we're currently working on a collaboration project with the CTSO Student Board. So just for reference, I currently serve as the president of the Career and Technical Student Organization Board, and we kind of work alongside the Illinois State Board of Education. So with this collaboration, which a couple of us from the SAC are a part of, we are currently working on analyzing and reviewing some data that the National Alliance for Partnership and Equity and ISB, the Illinois State Board of Education, they conducted a survey and we received over 7,000 responses from students all over Illinois. And these topics just kind of range from identifying barriers in dual credit courses or career technical education courses. And we'll go over some terminology too, just for reference. But our main goal with this collaboration and our project is really just to review the survey data that was collected and kind of identify and come up with any recommendations that we as students would like to address and how we can kind of tackle these barriers that we're able to find through our student focus and student lens. And once we do that, we also want to gather additional recommendations from our peers and pressure test that. So that is kind of where everyone in the SAC, regardless if you were a part of the collaboration or not, that is something kind of where we kind of want everyone's involvement. And then for the people who kind of participated with this project and helped with the data analysis, we will be presenting all our information at the Success Network conference on February 29th at the Moraine Valley Community College. So we just want to kind of go over some vocabulary and clarify some terms that we're going to be using once Danya goes over our data analysis. So we're kind of familiar with CTE, but that really stands for Career Technical Education. And the general definition is that CTE programs in Illinois provide instructions for careers that are in demand and pay a good salary. And then we'll go over some examples as well in the next slide. But the CTSO stands for Career Technical Student Organizations. So these are just organizations of students who represent specific CTE pathways. And in general, CTEs are branched off of specific pathways, for example, agriculture or business and finance or healthcare. And these CTSOs are created at the state level and composed of students from all over Illinois. And these pathways, and they improve student voice in career education and make sure that we have that element of student leadership. And then dual credit, just like we had our students kind of go over their experiences, dual credit is a college course taken by a high school student that results in the student receiving credit at both the college and high school level. So kind of like how we were introduced those two different methods of either going to the specific institution or just staying at high school. After high school, there's a lot of flexibility with different schools, and maybe even at your own school, you might have some sort of hybrid. So these are just some examples of CTE and CTS and dual credit. So again, CTE, there are different clusters of pathways and careers. So for example, 2 example clusters we kind of put down is arts and communication. So you might be familiar if within your own school, you have classes that are similar to photography or journalism or video production. These are all considered CTE courses because they fall under the arts and communications pathway. And then another example could be finance and business. And some example courses might be accounting, marketing, or entrepreneurship. And these courses are pretty varied and are pretty diverse for different schools. So although your school might not have the specific course designated that in the examples that we're showing you guys, there's a lot of flexibility with how different schools can approach CTE. And they might not also be called CTE, but the bottom line is everyone should have these opportunities to engage in this career pathway course. And then some examples of CTSOs. So there are currently 9 Illinois CTSOs that are active and running. And for example, each CTSO falls under a specific pathway. So for agriculture, we have Future Farmers of America, or for health sciences pathway, we have the Healthcare Occupation Students of America. And students, you guys might be familiar with these different CTSOs functioning as clubs or chapters within your own school district. For example, you might have heard of HOSA or DECA, or Science Olympiad. These are all the kind of CTSOs that run at the school individually and are also available as a general state level CTSO. And then dual credit, just the most general example is just going to be within community colleges. Like Grace was mentioning, how Barrington High School kind of partners with Harvard College. And again, you will be receiving college credit for these courses.
Thanks, Emily. And I know that many of you are familiar with this, but we have some students in the SAC who are not familiar with it. So just wanted to make sure, again, that we're all on the same page. Although I see that we have some students who are missing, who had said they would participate. But apologies if you already knew all of that and you had to listen to it again, but just wanted to make sure that we're all starting from the same page. So thanks, Emily, for sharing that. And so, Dania, I think I'll let you share your screen.
Yeah, let me go ahead and share. So I'm going to be leading us through an activity where we're going to look at the results of these data that we have that Emily's just presented to us. First, before that, I want to give a quick shout out to the SAC members here on the call that were involved in this. It was a collaboration effort between some of the SAC members and the CTSO. And so I want to give a quick shout out to Sam, Rowan, Anthony, Jose, Nicole, Emily, and Pragati, who took time to analyze these data and help me present it. So what I'm going to be showing you today is really their work. And we're all going to be going through an activity together to give some reactions to their work, look at the barriers that some students mentioned that they had to dual credit and career and technical education, and then talk about some recommendations. And so that's just a quick overview of what we're going to do. I'm actually not going to go back to sharing the slides because I'm going to have everybody open up a Google form that I'm going to send in the chat. If you could go ahead and open that up, and I'm going to be going through it on the back end here so that we can walk through each part of it together. I'm going to give a second for y'all to open it up and answer the first part of it alone, which is the demographics. Just reminding us who's responding to the survey, and then I'll go through each results and we'll have some discussion about each of them. But let me just give y'all a second to answer the first portion before we go anywhere further.
And Dania, for the students who responded to it at yesterday's meeting but didn't send it, should they just go back to the form that they had?
Yeah, if you already responded, thank you for that reminder, Edith. If you were at our meeting yesterday and were involved in the data already, if you already sent in and submitted your form, don't start another form. That's great. Thank you for submitting it. If you started your form yesterday but forgot to submit or have a few more points that you want to add in, please add them in, and make sure to submit at the end of the meeting today. And if you weren't a part of that meeting, then start a new form. And if you have already sent it in and you want to add more thoughts and more recommendations, put them in the chat while we're talking during the meeting, and I'll make sure that they're reflected and when we're gathering all the recommendations. Awesome. So as y'all finish up your demographics, so what I'll be doing is I'll be showing some results, and then after each of them, I'll be posing this question of what your initial reaction is to the results. Some things that you're going to be thinking about while you're answering this are these results consistent with your experience or your peers' experiences? Do these results make sense to you? Are they surprising to you or confusing to you in any way? And if you have any follow-up questions that come from them. So the first set of results are about dual credit. The first question that was asked was, are there barriers that keep you from participating in dual credit courses at your school? And we found that nearly 10% of people said yes, and around 90% of people said no. And so I'll give you all just a second to look at that. And as you feel comfortable, if anybody wants to unmute, which is preferable, or put something in the chat about what their response is to this results, whether or not they think it's makes sense to them or is confusing to them, any reactions. And another thing I was going to quickly say before I stop talking and let y'all talk, please, is that if you feel like there's not enough time to type right now, and you want to speak aloud instead of typing, just make sure that you're taking a few notes of what you want to send in and ensure that you send in that form soon after the meeting if you can. But don't stress about getting everything right in right now if it takes from sharing with the group.
I'm gonna come out and say that like this doesn't really seem to align with my experiences. I mean, maybe this is because I'm just from a smaller town, like school, but a lot of uh, a lot of the opportunities you really need to kind of look for, I found, or like you need to like actually reach out to different colleges. At least that's kind of how it is around here. I mean, granted, there are a couple classes that you can take, but they're not like anything CTE or CTSO.
I just wanted to say that I also had a very similar experience, but like I come from a relatively large school. I think my school has like around 4,000 students, but we offer a lot of like AP classes, but I don't think it's that accessible for us to find like dual credit courses because I don't think our school really offers those classes.
I just wanted to say that I feel like when it comes to my school, I'd probably agree with this graph of being able to reach out, and I feel like our school does a good job of having plenty to go for. I feel like there are a few barriers maybe of maybe not being produced out well. I can tell you in our FFA program, we go and meet with the 8th graders every year, so they have a little bit of an idea when they get to high school of, what are their dual credit options, what year they can start taking them, where they can go through, at least through the ag program in my experience. And one thing I would like to know is what's stopping them, and stuff we could make that better maybe.
That's a great question, Cannon, which actually brings us right to the next piece. So first, a quick summary, and if you have thoughts on that, remember to put them in the chat or in straight in the forum, which all of y'all will be sending in at the end of the meeting too. But we're seeing that like some of y'all have this experience, some of you in your schools don't have the same experience. Now we're going to move on to the next question about what barriers might be keeping students from participating in dual credit courses. So what we did here is students actually sent in lots of responses, and our team of students working on this put them into different themes and categories. So here you'll see the percentages of the barriers separated by theme and category. And then below, if you scroll down, you'll see selected quotations, just some examples of the type of things that students said that ended up being fitted into those categories. So if you want to take a moment to look at those too on your screen, because I know I can't fit them all on mine. And then same question will come up, which is what is your initial reaction to this? Some things to think about, again, or if it's consistent with what you know, if it's surprising or confusing. And another piece of this is we're going to be talking about recommendations that you might have to address these barriers. So if you have any thoughts on your initial reactions and recommendations, go ahead and unmute, add to the chat, and of course, put in the form as well.
These surprised me a lot. It's very different from my school. Just people saying that like my school pays for everyone's dual credit classes. The only thing you don't have that you have to pay for is like your registration fee and your textbooks, which can get pricey, so I understand that, but they pay for the tuition of going to the college and everything. So that's never been like that big of a problem for my school. And because it's not teachers teaching it at our high school, we don't have the issue of not having like the classes because it's at the actual community college. And if you just have to test in to do it in this program, which is still only juniors and seniors, but you don't have to have a certain GPA or anything. It's 2 tests that you take, and as long as you score above a certain point, then you're eligible for the program, and then you just have to keep your GPA up while you're in it, which is kind of how most colleges are regardless. So my school has never really had these issues, and honestly, our dual credit program is one of our like biggest things at my school. Like about half of the juniors and seniors do it every year in some way or another, because we do have where you can do like some classes at the college and some at the high school. I'm just doing all at the college. So it's like a very big thing in my school. So we've never really had any of these issues, which I'm incredibly grateful for. And it's been a great opportunity. I can't really relate to any of it.
Yeah, so
Well,
the survey was sent out to students from all over the state, right? So in different parts of the state, in different geographies and different resources. And so I think that's why we're seeing these different results.
But it's also good to hear from you, Olivia, what it is that you think that helps this not be as much of an issue at your school. Like you're mentioning that your school pays for classes, and that's often mentioned as a barrier. So it's good for us to also take note of like what is it that works for schools to get more students in dual credit courses. Does anybody else have similar or different experiences?
I would love to. I would have to say that I agree with Olivia there. I get that same, I'd say, luckiness and ability to be able to have so many options. Coming from a small school and having as many options as I do, it's truly a blessing with it. While looking at this graph, it does shock me and makes me happy for what I have, definitely. And I see on the graph, like it talks about maybe GPA being a struggle, and I've always just kind of thought, I feel like GPA, there should be a GPA that at least gets you into a dual credit class. Like you should have a good GPA, or that should be a requirement. So I kind of wondered if that's a bad problem or a good problem or whatever that might be.
I want to build on that point because I was thinking about that as I read one of the quotes at the bottom of it when it talks about mental capacity and procrastination. At least in my school, I feel like sometimes dual credits have a stigma to it where they're really hard classes, or that because you don't have the right GPA, you shouldn't be taking that class. And that does, I feel like, drive away a lot of kids because specifically we offer Comp 101, and a lot of people go through that class at our school and they're like, oh my God, it's so hard. And they kind of discourage people when it's just, that's what they've heard from other people, but it's just kind of like an effect. So I feel like everybody thinks that these classes, because they're dual credit and through a college, at my school, it kind of makes them be like, oh, this is too hard. I don't want to put in that much work.
Gotcha. Do y'all, as these barriers or recognition of lack of barriers come up, do any of y'all have recommendations on what you think can be done to address these barriers that students across the state are facing?
I wonder if, building on Rowan's comment, if there are opportunities for peer-to-peer information sharing so that students who are taking the classes can share with others about their experiences and demystify this idea that it's challenging or that kind of thing. Rowan, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but would that be helpful?
I definitely think it would. Specifically in our school, dual credit isn't generally offered until juniors. So being able to have juniors definitely with like a wide range of experiences with dual credit, talking to our sophomores would probably be more beneficial than just hearing things word of mouth through other people, just kind of not really sure whether or not it's true.
In my school, personally, we have a CEO program and stuff like that, and they'll come and visit it and stuff like, which are juniors and seniors. And one of their big topics is dual credit classes, and they usually talk to sophomores and freshmen and give them knowledge of that you should go into it. Even if you're not going to college, just in case you do, it's a good way to start. You're paying free classes, at least at my school, they're free for us. So, and it's a great way to start. So I would say that would work a lot well, because we've done it in our school and it's worked really great. And I feel like a lot of kids have definitely took advantage of what we have.
Great. Yeah, thanks for that. So be sure to add that to the recommendations.
Awesome. Well, I know I want to be mindful of time. So if you have more recommendations you want to share, please put them in the chat. And some more recommendations that address all of these things will likely come up in this next section as we start talking about career and technical education participation. So as a reminder, the definition is here, as Emily also shared it earlier, just to keep a reminder of what CTE is. And the first question was whether or not there are barriers that kept these 7,000 participating students in the survey from participating in a CTE course or program at their school. And these were the results that we got. And I just want to pose that same question to y'all. What's your initial reaction to this? Does it seem consistent with what you see? Does this seem surprising to you?
It would be great to hear from people who we haven't heard from. But Chi, go ahead.
I think that this is pretty similar to my school because, like, for my school, I think even like the freshmen and like the underclassmen, they're super involved in CTEs. So I think it's like pretty similar.
I agree. At least in my school district, we have a lot of like career exposition fairs and a lot of also initiatives to go out and reach out to the middle schools that come into our high school and try to get the word out for CTE. But I know one of the biggest kind of barriers that I personally heard, at least from my own peers, is like the distinction between like taking like a CPE class versus taking like an AP course or anything else, because I know a lot more students at my school are encouraged to take more like AP style courses, and not all CPE courses can give you that graduation requirement for credit. So some of the barriers like come in with like scheduling, and like some students have to take a certain number of math courses or science courses just to graduate early, and sometimes they just don't have the time to take a CTE course. So I guess just like initially thinking about this, like it would be better for students at least who are closer to like junior senior year to have the opportunity to kind of like blend in like English credits or like math credits along with different CT courses.
I fully agree with that because I had a lot of issues with scheduling, as a lot of this courses I've taken have caused me to have an 8 straight where I lose my lunch period and I have eight straight classes just so I can take the course. So yeah.
I'd say based off of my experience, I'd say a barrier that I might encounter is like the lack of knowledge, because from talking to my counselor, she doesn't really like cover the topic that much. So if I ever do participate in one, I feel like lack of knowledge is where I'd like really lose balance.
So would
Yeah, as you
yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, as we get into these, as y'all are starting to bring up these barriers, which also I want to mention, I hope everybody gets a lunch period. Shreyas, make sure you're eating lunch and not having 8 straight courses. But lunch is really important. But as we start going into barriers, I just wanted to bring this up here and note that like some of the barriers that y'all have started to mention are ones that students also responded with. Scheduling challenges was made up almost 18% of the responses. Lack of information, like you just mentioned, Samuel brought up almost 30% of the responses here. So again, with this question, I just wanted to pose to y'all if this seems consistent, which I know we've already started delving into that, and whether or not you have recommendations based on these barriers that are mentioned. And I'll bring up the quotes and the graph right here.
So when we were in our meeting yesterday for like the collaboration review, I started like finding a common theme with all of this, and it was like the lack of information, also like using your resources. So like on the recommendations, we started like, or the barriers, we found like it was lack of information that kept coming up a lot. So at my school, like our counselors are great and they're super good at giving information like multiple different ways. But there's still some things that I feel I wouldn't have known about if I wouldn't have like gone in and like had one-on-one conversations with my counselors. So I feel like a suggestion for like everybody here and like to take it back to your homeschools is like develop that relationship or like connection with your counselor, because like they can only give so many resources that are like applicable to the majority and not just to like you.
I agree. I've taken like journalism at my school. That's part of the arts and communications pathway for 4 years, but I didn't realize it was like a CTE course until probably my sophomore year, because going into like course selections, my school doesn't specifically list CTE courses as CTE courses. They just kind of call them as electives. And that kind of gives like that like stereotype that like, oh, like if a course is an elective course, like it's not required, like you don't need to graduate. And even only until recently, about junior year, when I got closer to my director of CTE in my high school, was when I learned about like endorsements that you can receive and all these different opportunities that open up with CTE. So I definitely agree with developing a good relationship with your counselors, and they're always there to help you. But I also feel like when you're kind of a freshman, when it comes to like choosing courses and CTE courses, you don't know what you don't know. And if a student's kind of not familiar with CTE and what it even is, it's kind of hard to kind of reach out to counselors and faculty members.
These are all great notes. I just, if I'm not looking at all while you're speaking, it's because I'm typing away and making sure that we write all these recommendations, because it'll help us with your homework assignment, which I'll mention in a little bit. But being mindful of the time, I want to move down into our next question. And this kind of follows up on Emily's note about like, how do you find out about these things? And you don't know what you don't know. And so we asked students how they learn about CTE programs offered at their high school. And I wanted to check, give the same pulse check here. Do y'all feel like this is consistent with what you see, inconsistent with what you see?
I think it's pretty consistent with what I see because for my school we call CTE courses like electives. So oftentimes like I'm an art student, so like a lot of the art teachers will like try and promote the other art classes. So I think that like the fact that majority of the students know about these programs, their teachers, like that's pretty similar to my experience.
Awesome.
I would also say, or at least in my experience, at least, and a lot of my friends, a lot of our CTEs, I mean, we learned from, seniors graduating and stuff like that. So I mean, when I look at that graph, I guess I just don't see that, or maybe I'm just blind, but, oh yeah, peers. But I feel like the peers would be a higher percentage than what it is. I found out a lot more. I mean, I would definitely say most of my class figured out just from friends that were older. And maybe that's because we have a small school, but I don't know. It's definitely where I found more of it.
Yeah, I'm really seeing a theme here. So we've mentioned before this theme of lack of information, and now y'all have brought up quite a few recommendations in that area, like peer-to-peer recommendation sharing, like Edith and she mentioned, and now, and Cannon has also mentioned that in school there's like seniors and juniors that speak to underclassmen, and so are there other recommendations beyond those two, but beyond this peer-to-peer sharing, that y'all think would be great to be able to address this lack of information barrier that continues to come up? One
I know
thing
for my school. Oh,
go
sorry.
ahead. No, you can go.
Oh, thank you. Sorry. I know for my school, usually like it's mostly like the high school teachers that sometimes promote it, or your like peers, but mostly like the staff who like direct like those CTEs don't really promote it. At my school, it's kind of like, I guess, under like ground in some sense. So I think just like encouraging like the staff that hold these CTEs to kind of promote it. I mean, it's their class. They should want more students to find out about it and try it out.
And that's actually perfect, because I was going to talk about how I'm in a CTE course right now, and one of the things that my teacher did is she made it a project for us to in the business department to like create advertisements for it, so that each student actually ended up sampling a different portion of the different classes. So not only are you kind of seeing what else is out there, but you're trying to figure out ways to get more students involved. So I didn't know if maybe like making it like a class project, depending on what your CT is, could be beneficial to helping with outreach.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
those
are really interesting and sort of thoughtful suggestions. So definitely want to add those. And if for those who we haven't heard from, I don't want to call names, but it would be great if you have something to share.
I was gonna say that this is kind of different from how I learned about the CTE programs at my high school. So I learned about the CTE programs like through my elementary school teachers. Like I came in knowing that my school offered medical, knowing that that's what I wanted to do. So I would just say maybe like high school counselors and elementary school counselors can connect because I was in elementary school and I had a counselor. I mean, everybody had the same counselor, granted, but you know, now at high school I have like there's like 4 different counselors, but maybe they can like connect more and like offer maybe before school like information classes or seminars just so that way like 8th graders and like you know like freshmen don't come in with that like with the lack of knowledge. Maybe they can come in knowing that the CTE program is offered at their school and stuff like that.
I also have another thing to add. While we don't necessarily have CTE programs, we do have a lot of workshop classes. Oh crap! Didn't realize my camera's off. Sorry about that. We do have a lot of like workshop classes, which are kind of advertised. A lot of people say they're a lot of fun. They just don't necessarily offer these exact same benefits. A lot of the more advanced classes that do actually offer benefits, I feel like I'm not in any of the shop classes, but it seems like a lot of them are something that you learn about while you're in the classes, which I guess does seem to be a kind of reasonable layout because if you're partaking in the classes, then it would make sense that you'd want to pursue something like that.
Yeah, and I just want to make sure that we all know that these classes are referred to in different ways in different schools, right? As we've heard from other students. So you might think it's not being offered, but it may be offered and they might be using a different term for it. And Anasia, I also just want to acknowledge your suggestion to work with elementary schools, which I think would be very helpful for students to begin to know about these options sooner.
Yeah, absolutely. These are all wonderful recommendations, and we're taking note of them. And we'll show you how we're going to use them in a moment. But I want to move us to our last section here, which is about CTSOs. First, before we go into the section, can y'all raise your hand on Zoom if you are a part of a CTSO? Okay, so we got quite a few of y'all in on. So this entire portion, it seems that I want to go over a few things about CTSOs. So Emily has already provided us with the definition of them. And so something that we did was we asked students if they were involved in CTSOs, and then they responded by sharing yes or no, and then whether and which CTSO they were actually involved in. And so when asked which CTSOs they were actually involved in, 689 students said that they were in a CTSO. However, when we actually had a CTSO board member look through all of the responses, they found that there were a lot of people that didn't really know what a CTSO was because they were putting responses in there that were courses or that were organizations that were not CTSO organizations, or they just didn't clarify an organization properly. And so I wanted to show these responses to y'all. We ended up having, I believe, only 190 of those 689 responding with an actual CTSO. And I wanted to get y'all's pulse check on these results and see if this is consistent with what you see in your schools. Do you feel like you and your peers might have misunderstandings of what CTSOs are and sometimes think they're courses or non-CTSO orgs? Or does this seem surprising, confusing in any way?
I would say I'm not very surprised. I would have to say it took me till I've been in the CTSO for 4 years, and it took me till my senior year to actually know what a CTSO was. So, I'm not completely surprised. It doesn't get put out in that way. They just say it more as a club or something. We don't actually know maybe that actual definition or what it's actually called.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Ken. And I'll just point out that yesterday we had the director of CTE programs at the Illinois State Board of Education on the call, and she did raise a question about maybe just students understanding what it is that they're being asked. So they might not know, and the way that the question is framed might not always help students understand what they're being asked. But Sam, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd say I'm not very surprised either, because it really links back to that lack of knowledge thing where counselors don't really bring it up very early on. So really, like, you're very deep into it and then they start bringing it up, and that's when that's when you have that moment of realization of what everything really is.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is something that will be shared at the Illinois Success Network conference, as well as all these other results. And something that like we have been thinking about as we present this information is also like what would be important to share outwards with folks that work with CTE and work with CTSOs and dual credit. And so this is all really important to know, because then your peers in the SAC and the CTSO board will be able to share this type of information outwards, that like even like I even even for students that are in a CTSO, sometimes they don't know they're in a CTSO, and so like that information spreading is really important, and will help people better understand the opportunities and engage in them and benefit from them more as well. This last question that we're going to look at is of those 190 students that actually responded with the CTSO. This was the breakdown of the organizations that they were a part of, and I wanted to get a pulse check if this seems surprising to you, confusing to you, what your reactions are to this, if this seems representative of your schools as well.
I was a little surprised that there are a lot of students in FFA, because for my school, I don't think we offer FFA or DECA or TSA, but my school, like we're very involved in FBLA, HOSA, and Science Olympiad. Like our schools, like those are our top three. I think we have BPA and Future Education, I forgot the name, but like we have other programs. So I thought it was a little surprising that like it was so different.
Yeah, is it school dependent for y'all? Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. I come from a very rural community, so FFA doesn't surprise me very much. We have 400 kids in our high school and very rural. Everybody knows a farmer. And I can say that as a senior, and when I'm my junior going into senior year as part of the FFA and leader, our big thing was getting freshmen involved. And I think we had 130 in the freshman class and we had 60 sign up for FFA. So it was our biggest year ever. And it really in our school is gaining a lot of traction because it's showing how much future career goals lead and pathways lead through the FFA, whether that be the competitions or just meeting new people.
Yeah, so we're hearing that this is very school specific, it's very region specific, what's actually offered at the school, what type of jobs might be very popular in the area, that all might be influencing this results. Awesome. Well, I know we're coming close on time here, so that was the last question. Beyond just getting any concluding thoughts on this survey and on all the data in general, is there anybody that feels like they have a thought about what we've talked about today that they didn't get to share that would really like to share with the group? All right, well, please share in the chat as we, go ahead.
Quick
go
thing. It just took a second to unmute. I feel like we just need to try and, well, we're not quite we, but just in general, we need to try and incentivize getting out this really important information in schools. Maybe like have it be something that's brought up in a lot of classes, like maybe just like spend a day where, I mean, at Mendota, we have something similar for college planning. Like maybe for like a homeroom, just have sort of a breakdown of all these different opportunities that are actually present at the school and what you can do to help kind of clarify it with the students.
I would totally agree with you. That's a really good idea.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you all for your contributions. Again, as you have more of them, put them in the form that everybody will be sending in and in the chat as we close out. I want to give you, before I go back to the presentation, a quick look at something that will be sent out to your peers. So the homework assignment and the next step in this project is that you're going to be sending out a similar but much shorter version of these data out to your peers. And so your homework assignment, which we'll go over more clearly on the next slide, is that you're going to be sending out a different version. You see there's like a CTSO board /SAC version that has demographic information and everything. do not send that one out to your peers, but we'll be giving you the link of this other one that is much shorter, anonymized. And the point of this one is to be getting some responses to y'all's recommendations. And so we provide the barriers, the questions that we talked about recommendations for, the selected quotations. And then here I've been taking notes separately of all of the recommendations that everybody's mentioned. And I'll also take into consideration the recommendations that are sent in when the forms are all in. And we'll put them here. So here we'll share some of your peers have come up with the following recommendations to address these barriers, and I'll insert some of the recommendations. And then your peers will be giving a pulse check on the recommendations, saying whether or not they think it'd be possible at their school, whether or not they think they'd actually help address the barriers, and whether or not they have additional recommendations to provide. And they'll just be doing this for 2 sets of questions, just about the barriers to dual credit and the barriers to CTE participation. It's a much, much, much shorter survey, but the homework assignment for y'all, let me go back to sharing this here. It's loading. The homework for y'all will be finishing sending in your version, like your full version that we walked through today, the initial responses form. If you have not already, just take some extra time to get all the thoughts down that you didn't get to share aloud or get to type in today. Make sure that's in as soon as possible, but well before the 23rd. Send your anonymous recommendation initial responses form, which I'll put in both in the chat and we'll send out as well. There we go. We'll send out in an email, and then send that to at least 10 peers. The peers will give initial reactions to your recommendations and additional recommendations if they have any, and all responses should be in by the 23rd of January. So does anybody have any questions, or Edith and Emily, do you have anything to add?
No, thank you so much, Dania, for leading the discussion, and thanks to all the SAC members for such thoughtful recommendations. We're looking forward to sharing these at the Success Network Conference on February 29th. Emily, did you have anything to add?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. And the reason Emily does a lot of the work on this, because I know some of you were not here at the first meeting, is because she's an intern. In addition to being a SAC member, she's also an intern at Ed Systems at NIU. And so she sort of helps develop the agenda and helps with a lot of the work for this. So I think the only other thing we wanted to talk about is the SAC newsletter. If you could please get any information that you'd like us to include in the newsletter. All right, here are some important dates. So by January 19th, please submit items for the newsletter. Hopefully you all saw that the last newsletter that we sent out with just descriptions of things that you're doing that are creative in your school that you want others to know about, or something that you've learned about. So the 19th is next Friday. Please send that to us so that we can share it with everybody else. And then by January 23rd, make sure that your peers have completed those Google Forms. We're asking you to reach out to 10 students. So hopefully that is at least 10 students. So hopefully that's doable. And then February 16th, for the students who participated in the data assignment, we'll meet to prepare for the presentation. And then on February 29th, we have the conference at Marine Valley Community College, and you're all invited to come to it. We will send out the registration form again. It's free of charge, and we will work with your schools to make sure that you're excused on that day. So even though you're not presenting, there will be a SAC-only session, so it'll be helpful for you to show up for that. And then I'll just open up the SAC newsletter here. As a reminder, this is what it looked like. So we included stories from several of you about what you've been working on. You know, people shared different things that they've been learning. And then we shared the link with how you shared information on the PACE framework. So hope you all have a great long weekend. And once you finish the exit slip, you can just drop off. Yeah, and stay warm.